Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Planet Coaster. We're working on Siege again, this time on a little bit of the queue, a little bit of our path exit, or our ride exit I should say, and some of the pathways just to kind of lay out the basics for the rest of this little area kind of surrounding the roller coaster. And I will say that I'm really happy that we got this stuff finally laid out because, again, it's all about kind of like the scope of the project and kind of figuring out what it's all going to look like when it's done, and something that I struggle with pretty much every single time that I try and build anything in this game or in City Skylines or really just any like creative type game is having an idea of what it's going to look like when it's done and not getting discouraged on the way there. And I think that's something that pretty much anybody who plays games like this probably struggles with a little bit, at least at some point. So I would just say, like I said last episode, you got to remember that it's going to look totally different when it's done, and when you start layering things and adding on to buildings, it's much easier to kind of see a final product. But anyway, as you can see here, I decided to just kind of jump away from the pathway that we put down and try to finish the exit building for the roller coaster. And I wanted to start with a little building that had like a gift shop sort of thing, kind of like you would see in most theme parks. When you get dumped out of a ride, you'd be put right into a gift shop. And as you can see here, maybe you can't really see it very well, but that little bridge that takes you to this shop here, and well, I guess soon to be shop, is not really a hat shop quite yet. I'm putting that down right now, but this little walkway that goes to this hat shop is just wide enough that you need to use two different grids to get that little wall on each side. And because of that, it also makes the entry to this little area kind of offset with the rest of the grid. And it's an offset that's just enough to be bothersome. Like you can see right here, it's misaligned by just a little bit. At the same time, it's also, all the path is on the same sort of like 90 degree or 45 degree grid. So because of that, we can't really just make a whole bunch of organic building shapes all around it. And you can see here, I'm struggling a lot with connecting these two grids together, especially because there's two different archways like right next to each other, and it leaves a little gap in the middle. So I think I went about this all wrong, and I think that it's just like a mindset thing, and like a way that I play the game, that I've been playing games in the past like this for so long. And I would bet that a lot of people are like me and have been playing games that have grids like Roller Coaster Tycoon, or I guess I don't think really City Skylines applies in this context, but maybe The Sims or something. But lots of these grid-based creative style games, you get in this kind of mindset of building on a grid, and you kind of got to break that habit a bit here. And I think that the easiest way to go about this, and the thing that I wish I would have known when I started this building, but I think I kind of learned along the way, is that it's far easier to just make a building on a universal grid and kind of close the whole thing off. Give yourself more space than you need around the parts that are going to be little walkways, and don't worry too much about the general look of the building from the outside. Just try and get like a basic shape down, and keep in mind that you can very easily add and layer things later on to make it look nice on the outside. So just get the whole building closed off so that the inside works and is functional, and then go back and worry about the details on the outside. So I think I finally got around to that around this point here. You can see I'm trying to close off the building. I was putting down some little details here and there, but for the most part I'm just closing off the whole building. I'm going to put a roof on here in just a minute and get that figured out. Oh, I did actually want to get the interior kind of decorated a bit because I'm going to be closing it off here in a minute. But from there, I think the next thing that's really easy with this game is building modules outside of your main building, which is, again, something that I'm totally not used to doing. I don't really think that's been a feature in really any other game I've ever played before, so it's kind of weird to do that, but it definitely helps a lot, quite a bit, especially over here. Just making some sort of little tower thing and decorating it away from the building so you're not colliding with stuff all the time and having a hard time building, and then you can just plop the whole thing down when it's done. And you can even go in and duplicate it and then change it and plop it down again. That's super useful if you're making towers and things, because then you can just like make one universal tower. Then you don't have to put down that base for the tower again, and then if you want to make it taller, you can just shift it up and add some stuff to it and then duplicate it again or whatever. And every time you duplicate it, you can just go back and change it a little bit so it looks a bit different than the other towers, but not have to make the entire tower over and over again. So you'll probably see that later on in this episode, but I think that's a pretty useful thing to do in this game that I really love about Planet Coaster in general right now, is just that the ability to make modular buildings and just like duplicate them and remake them in different ways. And I think it's a pretty cool feature. I'm really looking forward to having more themes and custom user-based content. That'll be a lot of fun to play with in this game. But here's where I started putting down some windows and some details for this building. Now, in hindsight, I think it would have been a lot easier if I would have just maybe not made such a large piece of this building on the same grid, because I think I even went further and used this building, or the grid for this building later on, to build parts of the roof. And I think if I would have just made a new building every time I wanted to add some more detail to this top part of the entire building as a whole, that would have made it a lot easier. But anyway, you can see I'm playing around a bit with some of these different props, and I think at this point I'm just getting not like tired of, but I think that this like same wood and like stone texture over and over again everywhere is getting a little bit repetitive, especially just, you know, it's a castle, so it's supposed to be pretty stone, and it's going to look a little bit repetitive. And I think also, of course, you know, putting down some lights and some foliage and all that stuff's going to change it a little bit, but it's still a pretty repetitive thing. So I think once I get this whole castle thing done, which is like this building, the main building for the station, and then the building that's like directly adjacent to the station, right across the way where the brake run is. Once I get all that stuff done for the castle, I'll probably start playing around with some different things, maybe doing a bit more of like, I don't know, just like some different buildings with the different like concrete props and stuff, because I haven't used that a whole lot quite yet, and that seems to be pretty popular right now, and it actually just is really nice to work with. Like, there's so many more props that have like a concrete feel to them, like the little like balcony pieces and all those different little molding pieces and stuff, and they don't really fit too well with this stone, I don't think, but they would fit really well with those like render walls that I'm using. So I think I'll definitely be playing with those more in the future on some different buildings that are kind of surrounding the castle, so we get some more diversity in building type, because right now it's getting a little bit repetitive in some places. But I also wanted to build up the back of this, because I know that little turnaround is going to have, you know, a great view of the back of this building, and I don't want it to just be like a giant stone wall. So I tried to make some more interesting shapes and things back here. And again, I think this is an area where I probably could have not kept a building up on the same grid, but I could have probably kind of closed it off and added some different buildings on top. But this is a great example of a place where we're finally away from areas where the interior needs to look good. So, you know, before I was working on an area that had like a walkway directly below it, so I couldn't clip things to the wall too much. But this area over here, there's no walkways inside these buildings, so you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can be clipping things in and out. You can see here I'm making a little, I think it's going to be like a balcony in the future or something. I might go back to that. I think I was having trouble with it at that point, but it's just much easier to work in areas like this when you don't have to worry about the inside. And I use a lot of these little square windows. I don't know, they feel kind of like right to me for this style. I don't really know why, but I guess they kind of fit in those areas. Here we're working on a sort of universal tower, and I think I'm going to be using this one quite a bit in the future for different parts of this castle. And like I was saying before, you know, you just make something very basic that looks pretty good, and then you can duplicate it and change its height or add some different details to it so it looks like a unique tower every single time. But you don't have to do like the basic stuff over and over again, which is super nice. So that's what's nice about building towers like this. And I tried to use some wood to kind of, you know, change up the different corners and not make them just like big square chunks or whatever. But even then, I think I'm going to go back and probably add some more details to that tower in the future, because it still has a kind of a bland stone exterior. And you can see I was still worried about clipping that tower into that wall, like I'd be, you know, visibly seeing that part of a tower, but it all worked out in the end. And I wanted to make a little spire here at the top, not only a spire, just like a tall, skinny tower. And I think I'm going to do a couple more modular buildings on top of here as well. Now this part right here, this little addition that I did, this is what I was talking about earlier. I definitely tried to use the same grid as that building below it, and I think that was a mistake. There wasn't really a reason to do that, and it would have been much easier if I would have just made a separate building outside of it, because you're going to see here as I keep building this little bell tower up the top, I'm going to keep deleting different pieces and rebuilding them, because they feel like they're all a part of the same grid, and I wanted to make it look a little more unique. And I kind of just forgot that I could have just made a separate building, and it would have looked a lot better, and it would have been a lot easier. So anyway, it turns out good in the end. I just think it's kind of a habit I need to break, that I'm just very used to working with grids that are universal. So who knows? But I wanted to have a little like lift thing over here, you know, maybe like moving objects or moving I don't know, supplies and things around the top of this tower. I kind of like imagine this tower to be like a, I don't know, like a supply building or something for the big castle on the other side, something like that. So I put a lot of supplies, a lot of lifts and things on the top of this tower. But in general, I just wanted the top of this big structure to have a lot of detail and a lot of different things there, because that's like the thing you're looking at whenever you exit the coaster station. So I wanted it to be pretty appealing. So that's why it's got all this stuff on top of it. But even then, I definitely think we could play around a lot more with those props, so I might come back to this later on and do some more prop stuff. But I did like the little bell tower at the top. I thought it was kind of cool with those little different sized bells and things all around there. But anyway, I think from here is where I realized I needed to make a different modular building. Yep, here we go. So I thought, well, we should probably make another one of those bunker type buildings that I made for the first castle. This one's got a little indent on that corner there, and then I think I'm even gonna have like a little upper region up here with some more buildings on top. But just trying to use all those different like reinforced stone walls so it looks like a really thick, heavy-duty bunker type thing right there. And just kind of playing around with some different smaller pieces to make it look more fortified. And this bunker actually ended up being pretty awesome in the end, I think. Like, I really liked the way it looked. And once I finished it, I decided to just like duplicate it a few different times and kind of place it around different areas, because I think it kind of feels like a little outpost type thing. So we have like one of these on top of the building, but then we also have these kind of sitting around in different areas, kind of surrounding the castle, just because it really does have that little outposty feel. It's got a little tower where maybe you have like an archer or something up there, or cannons or whatnot, whatever you want to get. Now, I did run into something here, and I should mention it, even though I'm pretty sure I cut it out of a time lapse. There is a bug right now in the alpha, and I don't even know, I mean, by now you might even be in a totally different build of the alpha when you're watching this video, but if you're in the initial build of the alpha, the first build like I am, you might notice that sometimes when you're building stuff, you'll just like randomly have an object that you can't click on no matter what you do, and it could be like a building, it could be a prop, it could be whatever. For me, it was one of the cannons inside one of these builds, but I was moving it so the cannon would stay there and I couldn't delete it no matter what I did. They're just like a selection bug right now, and all you have to do is just relog the game, like quit it and then reload it again, and that should fix itself. So just keep that in mind if you have the problem, because it took me a while to figure it out actually, and it was a little bit annoying. I almost ended up building like a building around that area thinking it was like a permanent bug, but it's definitely not. There's like really easy ways to fix that, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But anyway, for this upper area, I think I was having a bit of trouble figuring out how we're going to implement this big tower thing, mostly because there's already like two other towers up here, so I didn't want it to look like it was like one big mess of towers. And I was kind of going for like a big crazy castle topper up here anyways, because like I said before, it's supposed to be a little bit hectic because it's like directly across from where you leave the station, so I wanted to have like a bunch of cool stuff to look at when you're exiting. But I definitely use lots of towers around here, and this is where I solved that issue with the entry point. I just used that little tower there and combined it with some different wood chunks and things to kind of make it look like it's a big entry point, instead of trying to use one of the preset arches, which just don't work with that little space. It's like a little bit too wide for one of those arches, so I used something else instead. But here we are working on the back. I think I finally went back to the idea of trying to make some sort of little balcony thing up here, and again working with some separate little pieces you can kind of move around and use. And this is what I love so much about this game, is just making individual module pieces for whatever you need to make. And I really can't wait until we have like tons of different objects. I mean, you see all the things you can make now with this very limited selection of objects. It's going to be awesome when we have like entire like huge categories of themes and user created content. I can only imagine the stuff you're going to make when you have the user created content, because we're going to have like all these like smaller pieces and things. So I'm really excited for that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited about that. It's going to be awesome. This area here, I just didn't like the look of that little back section. It looked very symmetrical to me, so I just plopped down something extra there. And then here I am just putting some molding on the top of this bell tower, throwing in some details here and there. I think I wanted to make this wall look a little bit less bland and flat, using some more of those little molding pieces around there. I think we're going to get here pretty soon to the addition of like cannons and other little topper pieces, some barrels and things as well, once I got these little wooden post things. So I actually kind of like the way this looks. I like using the wooden posts combined with the molding. It kind of looks nice in the end, I think. Yeah, here comes the last little bit before we do, here we go, the barrels and everything. I think I wanted to even try to make a little cover or something, so it looks like you've got a little tarp covering all their supplies on top of that tower. And oh, this area, okay, good, I cut that. I tried to make a big staircase out of those things and it didn't look as good as I thought it would. I think I spent like a good hour or something just putting that together, and then I was like, that looks terrible, let's not keep that. But here again is that little outpost thing. And this is where I wanted to put down some sort of outdoor seating area for everybody buying food from the Chief Beef over there. So I wanted to have a nice big patio or sort of like wooden deck thing, put down some places to sit down and eat your food and enjoy maybe like a nice lunch or dinner or whatever. But I got this awesome idea from the Shy Guy forums, and really this is just like everywhere at this point, using these cement pillars in combination with the barrels to make a little like seating area type thing. Now we know now at this point that there's going to be some sort of integrated seating and like bench system where people can actually walk up and use those benches. That's supposed to come later, but as of now, I wanted to do something like this that would kind of at least give you the idea of what it's going to be, even though we don't have any actual seating at this point in the game. But so that's what we got so far. I just wanted to throw those down, kind of close everything off, make a nice little place to eat, and I'll put down some lights here in a minute, just like on the different tables, so it looks kind of nice and complete. And then, of course, we'll come back to this area as well, the rest of the areas, and actually do real lighting, so make this whole area night friendly. I haven't really done anything like that at all through this entire build, so we'll go back and we'll do lights for every single building. We'll do some foliage, we'll do all the details. I'm really looking forward to the next episode because that's when we get some like really cool looking detailing done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you think down below of the build so far, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.